Feilu Novel Network A.level signing novel. Summoner Possession System. Su Jun, who had just lost his job, was unlucky enough to be hit by a car, but unexpectedly crossed over and obtained a powerful summoner system. From then on, his path of counterattack began. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. God's Game. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su Jun walked on the street feeling a bit confused and depressed. Just now, he was fired by the company. He doesn't blame the company, he just blames himself for being too clumsy. He is not good at socializing and is indeed not suitable for the sales industry. He sighed inwardly, feeling confused about his future prospects, and at that moment, the piercing sound of brakes came to his ears. He looked up and saw a motorcycle flying out of the guardrail on one side. Then, he felt like he was hit by a huge force, and his whole body drifted up. The nearsighted glasses he was wearing also flew out of his face. He was hit by an off-road vehicle, driven by a young woman with bright eyes and white teeth. She was driving when suddenly a motorcycle rushed out of the car, and in order to avoid it, she turned the steering wheel sharply towards the side of the road. As a result, he avoided the motorcycle and collided with Su Jun, who was on the roadside. Su Jun was directly hit 7 or 8 meters away, covered in blood. The young woman stopped the off-road vehicle, opened the car door, and rushed down, looking panicked. Su Jun lay on the ground, feeling like his entire figure was floating in the clouds. It seems that the body and soul have separated, and this feeling is wonderful, like being drunk. He understands in his heart that he is about to die. Perhaps it's better to just die like this, and no longer have to worry about the future and future. Maybe even the heavens couldn't bear to see it anymore, so they created this car accident, causing themselves to die early and surpass others. The only thing they can't let go of is their parents, as well as Lin Yao. If they die, they may be sad. Su Jun suddenly felt very sad, feeling sad in his heart. In fact, he still had many unfulfilled wishes, but he was about to die, and then he knew nothing. It took an unknown amount of time for Su Jun to wake up in a daze, feeling a lot of pain on his head. When he reached out and touched it, it was all blood. Besides that, it seemed that he had not suffered any serious injuries. And there seemed to be various noises around him. Su Jun managed to stabilize his mind and habitually touched his glasses by his side, only to find them not far away. Fortunately, the lenses are made of ultra-thin resin, which is not easy to break. When I put on my glasses, everything in front of me becomes clear. Suddenly, he froze. What is visible to the eye is a vast expanse of white light, shooting down from the sky one after another. In the light, people's heads surge around, and I don't know how many people are in this light. And this space seems vast and boundless. I could barely see clearly that within a few meters of myself, there were people standing there, just like him. Everyone looked around with a look of shock on their faces, and in the endless light and shadows, there were chaotic and questioning voices everywhere. Where is this? What exactly is going on? How could there be so many people? Hey, how did you come here? Didn't the plane crash just now? I thought I was doomed. Is this heaven? Didn't you just collide with the car across from you? How did you wake up and run here? There were voices of doubt everywhere, and beside him was a chubby man who exclaimed strangely, "Are we all dead? Damn it, what the hell is this place?" Su Jun looked shocked and felt a mess in his mind. Suddenly, a voice rang in everyone's mind. This voice is neither male nor female, and it seems empty and devoid of any emotion. The number of people is already here, a total of 10,000 humans. Now we are starting to teleport. With the sound, the sky suddenly emitted a series of blazing lights, and Baiji chased everyone down. Before Su Jun could react, he was fixed by one of the beams of light. Suddenly, He felt as if his whole body had been penetrated by this beam of light, and his body slowly floated up on top of it. Around him, every person who was illuminated by the beam of light floated up like him. Su-jun only felt a white expanse before his eyes, and all the people and voices around him disappeared, no longer visible or audible. Then, the neutral voice without any emotion continued to ring. Welcome, chosen human. Below you have 5 choices. Powerful warrior, terrifying archer, invincible mage, mysterious summoner, or sacred priest. You can choose any profession you want, of course, you can ask questions if you don't understand. Su-jun was stunned when he heard this voice mention these 5 professions, which he was not unfamiliar with. Occasionally, he mentioned them in games he played or some magical novels he had read. However, what's going on right now? What does it mean to let him choose one of them? Can't help but ask, selected humans. What does this mean? What's going on now? Human beings, you can understand this as a game of gods or a masterpiece of some highly developed extraterrestrial civilization. In short, you are one of the randomly selected 10,000 humans among the billions of humans on Earth, and the chosen one will play a game. Of course, you humans are not the only race in this game. There are 30.2 qualified advanced intelligent creatures in the entire universe, and each intelligent creature is selected in a certain number to play this game. You will compete with each other, and only the final winner will be able to obtain the right to leave this world. Is there anything else that you don't understand? If you all understand, please ask. You choose a profession. Su-jun took a deep breath, and everything he encountered before him could no longer be explained by common sense. He only accepted it, and it was not just a dream or a farce, but a real occurrence. After calming down, Su-jun said in a deep voice, "Will it be that we humans will compete with other races in the same world you have set up? Only the winners can leave. What about the losers? Also, who are you? You are one of the gods who set up this game." "Oh no, the so-called game of the gods is just a metaphor for me. In fact, even I don't know what this is. I only know that I have been doing this job since I was conscious. I am the manager responsible for your human selection work, trying to answer your questions. As for your other question, what will happen to the loser? I don't have an answer to this because I don't know what will happen in that world, and everything needs to be explored by yourself. There is another question. You choose a profession here, only half an hour, and if you don't choose, you will be randomly assigned a profession to you. It has been 10 minutes now. May I ask, do you have any further questions?" Su-jun became increasingly confused and had too many questions to ask. For a moment, he didn't know how to ask, so he reluctantly thought for a moment and said, "I want to know the characteristics of these 5 professions. Can you explain them to me?" Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 2. Summoner. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Each profession has 8 attributes. Earth, water, fire, wind, thunder, light, darkness, and chaos. Warriors have strong melee and defense abilities, archers have ultra-long range attacks and flexible skills, mages have the strongest range magic attacks, summoners can summon various creatures to fight for themselves, and priests have the most holy healing ability. Of course, in the early stages, these 5 professions do not have any essential differences. Choosing a profession only determines the direction of your future evolution. Humans, have you figured out which profession to choose? After thinking for a moment, Su-jun said, "May I ask which of these 5 professions is the most powerful?" When he used to play games, he used to choose summoners because he was lazy, but for safety reasons, he still asked an extra question. The voice said, "There is no strongest profession, only the strongest race." Upon hearing this, Su-jun hesitated no longer and said, "Then I choose the summoner." "Understood, summoner." With the sound, the white space changed again, and a small colorful crystal slowly appeared, drifting towards Su Jun. This is the summoner's imperial crystal, and after fusion, you will become a mysterious summoner. Su Jun was unable to move in this space and could only watch as the colorful crystal slowly floated to the center of his eyebrows. Then, he felt a clear and refreshing sensation entering his body from the center of his eyebrows. Immediately after, the crystal transformed into thousands of fine lines that were difficult to see with the naked eye, extending along his eyebrows to various parts of his body. Moreover, Su Jun could clearly feel that with the implantation of this crystal, the area on his head that was originally shattered was actually healing at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Strange, indescribable. Everywhere in the body, indescribable forces seemed to be released from a state of bondage, and Su Jun was able to move. He clenched his fists and felt the surging power. Su Jun stared blankly and murmured, "What? What's going on?" At the same time, a mechanical voice echoed in his mind. The fusion of the Imperial God Crystal has been completed. The basic information is as follows. Then, Su Jun saw a row of numerical values in his mind. Name. Beast God. Attribute. Chaos. Occupation. Summoner. Species. Zoology. Durable. 150 points. Magic power. 100 points. Attack. 0 points. Defense. 0 points. Speed. 0 points. Equipment. An egg of a summoning beast. Other. None. In the air, the empty and emotionless voice continued, under the summoner, there are 3 types. Angel, demon, animal, and plant. The first 2 belong to the rare type, while the latter 2 are the ordinary type. Unfortunately, you are an ordinary animal type, which means that in the future, you can only summon animal-type summoning beasts. Holy angels and powerful demons cannot be summoned. Upon hearing this, Su Jun couldn't help but feel a strong sense of loss in his heart. He couldn't help but ask, so what does this enduring and magical power mean? Persistence refers to the duration of your divine equipment after merging with the divine crystal. When attacked, the endurance points will decrease. When it drops to 0, the divine equipment will disappear and you will become an ordinary human again. As for magic energy, it is the energy you need to use powerful skills. The higher the magic energy, the stronger the skills you can use. Su Jun continued to ask, how can we recover from the long-lasting 0 of the Imperial Divine Robe? Just as he spoke, the hollow voice suddenly sounded in the void. The half-hour deadline has passed, the teleportation is over. Finally, I have a message for you. The crystal of the Imperial Divine Robe must not be destroyed, otherwise it will die completely. Remember to protect it well, followed by a beep. The dazzling light suddenly disappeared, followed closely, and Su Jun's body collapsed and fell completely. Ah! Su Jun screamed in shock, still unable to see anything in his eyes, and then seemed to have fallen hard to some place, but his body felt no pain at all, only a dizzy tinnitus. After a while, when Su Jun regained his senses, he quickly got up and suddenly realized that he was already standing in the jungle. Damn it, I just remembered now. That guy hasn't told me yet, what would be considered victory. Su Jun cursed a few words before suddenly realizing that not far from him, there was a man like him, with a face full of shock and confusion, slowly getting up from the ground. Moreover, he was holding a huge white wide sword that was 4 fingers wide and 1.5 meters long. Supported by his sword, the man lifted his bewildered face and then saw Su Jun. He was stunned before saying happily, "Are you also a human chosen together?" Su Jun nodded and walked over. He looked at the exaggerated sword in his hand. Now, he was activating the Imperial God costume to cultivate the Beast God. He felt like his whole body was full of strength, as if a cow could be punched to death with just one punch, but there was no fear left. He said, "Yes, my name is Sujuan, and you? You were also chosen. Where did this sword come from?" The man, who was only in his 20s and looked 2 or 3 years older than Su Jun, said, "My name is Chen Nanxing. What kind of divine costume did this sword come from? I had it in my hand as soon as I activated it, didn't you?" Su Jun's heart moved and he said, "What profession have you chosen?" Chen Nanxing chuckled twice and said, "Of course he is the most powerful warrior. I used to stay up all night playing games in front of the computer, but when I got tired, I crawled in front of the computer and fell asleep. Later, it seemed like I could vaguely hear some explosion sound. When I woke up, I couldn't imagine coming to this strange world." As he spoke, he waved his giant sword in his hand and said, "It's strange how I've become so powerful. It seems that this imperial divine costume is really powerful. Hey, what profession are you? Why don't you have weapons?" Su Jun frowned and was about to speak when the sound of footsteps stepping on fallen leaves suddenly sounded on the other side. Then, he saw a person running towards him with a panicked expression. "Is that the fat guy?" Su Jun suddenly realized that the person rushing towards him was a big fat guy, familiar with his eyes, as if it was the same fat guy standing next to him before. The fat man was tall and powerful. He had a cross face and a big white sword in his right hand that was exactly the same as Chen Nanxing's, but he was dragged upside down in his hand. He ran over with a frightened face. Seeing Su Jun and Chen Nanxing, he immediately shouted, "Run away. There are monsters behind." Almost at the same time, Su Jun took a deep breath and saw a creature chasing behind the fat man 5 meters away. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 3. Monster Attack. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. This is a monster that looks like a big lizard. It is covered in green scales and looks up. It is about 1 meter tall and nearly 3 meters long. It opens its big mouth with blood vessels and continuously makes a hissing sound. It quickly chases after it. Seeing the green-scaled lizard chasing after him, Chen Nanxing exclaimed excitedly, "Fool, what are you trying to escape? We're afraid of such a small monster even with the imperial god costume. Look at me." He ran towards the chasing green-scaled lizard with his silver-white sword in his hand, then shouted loudly and swung his sword to hit him head-on. The chubby man who had originally escaped was taken aback when he saw Chen Nanxing charging forward with an excited and heroic expression on his face. He couldn't help but stop and then turn around. With a loud bang, Chen Nanxing's heavy sword fell to the ground, hitting the small stones under the fallen leaves. It immediately shook the few small stones and caused them to collapse diagonally. It can be seen that this sword was very powerful. In fact, after activating the Imperial Divine Equipment, their strength did indeed increase exponentially. Unfortunately, this heavy sword did not strike the head of the green-scaled lizard. The green-scaled lizard was very agile in its movements, but with a slight flash, it avoided it. Then it opened its big mouth and heard a click, biting Chen Nanxing's left shoulder. Then with a fierce pull, Chen Nanxing suddenly let out a scream, his entire body being pulled into the air by the green-scaled lizard. His silver and white sword in his hand was also thrown aside. Su Jun stood not far away, watching this bloody scene helplessly. The green-scaled lizard had a terrifying biting and pulling force, forcefully pulling one of Chen Nanxing's left arms and a large layer of flesh under his ribs off his body. Chen Nanxing let out a mournful howl, his body thrown away and falling to the ground. The skin and flesh on his left chest and abdomen were torn off, and the white bones inside were exposed. Chen Nanxing, who was thrown out, fell in front of Su Jun, and even a few drops of blood splashed onto his face. The green-scaled lizard opened its big mouth and swallowed the left arm that had been torn off Chen Nanxing's body, along with a large layer of skin and flesh connected to it. Then, a pair of fierce green eyes were paying attention to Su Jun and the chubby prey. The chubby man's face was covered in sweat, and he nervously held the white sword in his hand, pressing against Su Jun. It's not that he suddenly became brave and stopped running, but rather that the escape routes were all blocked. At some point, two green-scaled lizards appeared silently from the other side, totaling 3, forming a triangle that surrounded Su Jun and the others in the middle. Chen Nanxing, who was lying on the ground, kept howling and rolling in agony, but soon he couldn't even make a scream because 3 green-scaled lizards rushed out at the same time. The 3 lizards seemed to have already exchanged eye contact with each other, each selecting a prey. The lizard that bit off Chen Nanxing's left arm still pounced on Chen Nanxing, who was lying on the ground howling and rolling, while the other 2 lizards pounced on Big Fatty and Su Jun. The lizard that pounced on Chen Nanxing shot towards him with a single arrow step, and its front feet stepped on Chen Nanxing's body. Then, with its big mouth open, it fiercely bit down, tearing a large amount of blood-drenched flesh from Chen Nanxing's body with each bite. Unfortunately, after being colonized, Chen Nanxing's vitality became exceptionally tenacious. He couldn't even faint and could only endure the terrifying experience of being torn and devoured alive. Absolutely terrifying, extremely bloody. When 3 lizards almost pounced at the same time, the chubby man let out a terrifying howl and turned around to run. Chen Nanxing is a precedent. What kind of nonsense is this? Encountering this lizard is simply unbearable. But before the chubby guy could take 2 steps, he let out a scream and was bitten in the thigh by a lizard. The powerful force dragged him out. Su Jun never imagined that he could become so calm when facing this death threat. He didn't even know why he could remain so cold and composed. At the moment when the lizard pounced, he simultaneously pounced on the lizard and then squatted down. The lizard pounced over his head, and then Su Jun stood up and turned to pounce. He grabbed the huge tail of the lizard with both hands. Su stood up with full strength, and the effect was enhanced several times after the launch of the Imperial Divine Robe, making Su Jun look like a strongman. With a roar, he pulled at the huge lizard's tail and fiercely threw it out. With a loud bang, the lizard was thrown with its head and body heavily on one side of the ground by him. Then, Su Jun hugged its tail and, like a madman, pulled the huge lizard and threw it around. Bang! Bang! Boom! On the ground, several craters were smashed out, and one time Su Jun pulled the lizard and smashed it onto a small tree with a wrist that was thick. Surprisingly, he forcefully broke the small tree from within. Su Jun went crazy, smashing the lizard that had been held by his tail. The lizard's head had long been shattered by the impact, and at the same time as the lizard died, a small ball of light emerged from its body. In an instant, it flew to the center of Su Jun's eyebrows and entered his body, which was then absorbed by the divine chip inside his body. At this moment, the crazy Su Jun also caught the attention of the other 2 lizards. These 2 lizards gave up their original goals and pushed towards Su Jun. Obviously, these 2 beasts have a spirit of companionship and want to avenge the lizard that died in Su Jun. Su Jun's ability to kill this lizard was largely due to luck. Seeing these 2 lizards pouncing at the same time, Su Jun couldn't help but feel flustered. Then, he was almost bitten by these 2 lizards at the same time. A heart-wrenching pain emanated from Su Jun's body, and he let out a scream. The 2 lizards bit him and simultaneously shook their heads, causing Su Jun's body to roll out. A large piece of flesh had already been torn off by both lizards. In the midst of his screams, Su Jun's mind flashed with information about his divine costume. The value of one of the persistent terms immediately dropped from the original 150 points to 110 points. After tearing off a piece of flesh from Su Jun's body, 2 lizards immediately jumped out and pounced on Su Jun, who was lying on the ground. Then, their big mouths opened and they continued to bite. Su Jun screamed in pain, almost instinctively reaching out to grab at him. With a hissing sound, one of the lizards bit Su Jun's chest and rib, and then pulled hard. Suddenly, a large piece of skin and a rib were torn off by it, and the pain was unimaginable. The endurance of Beast God has been reduced by 20 points again, leaving only 90 points. Sujun screamed and used all his strength to roll over. Suddenly, another lizard also screamed and took a few steps back, then kept hissing. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 4. Magical Reproduction. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Originally, Sujun was struggling in agony when one hand hit one of its eyes, immediately shattering and protruding one of its eyeballs, with a trace of blood gushing out from its orbit. The lizard took a few steps back, let out a few screams, and then fell silent. In the remaining single eye, a more vicious light shot out before pouncing on it. Another lizard had already bitten off one of Sujun's legs in this brief moment, pulled it off and spat it out to the side, then continued to pounce and bite. Obviously, this lizard's current purpose is not to eat Sujun's meat, but to torture and kill him. Desperate Sujun, in extreme pain, saw these two lizards fiercely pounce with their blood basin mouths open, gritting their teeth, while the one-eyed lizard opened its blood basin mouth and was about to bite into its own head. Without hesitation, he suddenly reached out with both hands and grabbed the lizard's upper and lower jaws. The lizard had sharp teeth all over its mouth, and Sujun took the initiative to extend his hands in. Suddenly, he felt a burst of heart-wrenching pain on his 10 fingers, and another burst of tearing pain came from his lower abdomen. Obviously, another lizard had torn off a large amount of skin and flesh. The lizard tried its best to close its mouth and bite off Sujun's hands, but Sujun knew it was his last hope. In a hoarse roar, all its strength surged out, and with a roar, its innate divine power combined with the power of this feint was truly terrifying. With a roar, the lizard's mouth was spewed with blood, leaving Sujun's head and face covered in blood. Surprisingly, its mouth was torn apart by Sujun's terrifying power, and its chin was almost completely torn apart. At the same time, a small ball of light also appeared on the lizard, which was absorbed by the divine costume inside Sujun's body. The pain made Sujun roar and scream, and after tearing open and killing the lizard, the remaining lizard couldn't help but shoot a slight wavering expression in its eyes. Although the human in front of me had been bitten to pieces, the blood-stained expression on his face was so terrifying that even this ferocious monster felt a hint of fear. The lizard was hesitating when suddenly a huge white wide sword fell from above, fiercely slashing at its neck. In an instant, blood splattered, and the lizard's head was cut off from its neck by the giant sword. The remaining body slowly collapsed, and a small ball of light flew up from its body and disappeared instantly. Suddenly, the person who swung his sword and killed the last lizard turned out to be a chubby man. He was covered in blood all over his face and body. One of his right arms had completely disappeared and been bitten off, and half of his white arm bone was exposed from the bloody wound. He also had a big hole in his lower abdomen, and his bloody intestines were flowing out. Judging from his injuries, he was no better than Sujun now. After the last lizard died, the chubby man struggled to stand up and smiled at Sujun on the ground before falling down with a loud crash. All 3 lizards have died, and the scene is chaotic, with blood and meat everywhere. The scene is shocking. After a long time, Sujun suddenly sat up and was surprised to find that he had been so badly injured that his body had almost been bitten to pieces and had not yet died. Not only that, but a faint and holy light appeared on all the wounds, healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. What's going on? As the healing continued, the pain on the body became lighter and lighter, and there was also an indescribable sense of comfort surging in my heart. The chubby guy clearly noticed this strange thing. His injury was milder than Sujun's, and now he has almost healed, even the broken arm has grown back. With a wave of his newly grown arm, the chubby man said, "I understand. As long as this divine aura is not completely destroyed, our bodies cannot die from even the most serious injuries, and the injuries will heal and recover automatically. I finally understand the meaning of that strange voice telling me in that white light. Sujuan also felt a movement in his heart and said, "What about Chen Nanxing?" The two of them looked to the other side, only to see that Chen Nanxing's body was covered in blood, almost all of his flesh had been torn off and bitten off, and his head had also been bitten to pieces. He was now lifeless and had turned into a complete corpse. His reproductive crystals should have been completely destroyed, so he's really dead, the chubby man said in a deep voice, having experienced a life and death battle just now. It seems that as long as we protect the crystals inside our eyebrows, no matter how serious the injury is, we won't die, said the chubby man. No, there's also the persistence value of the clone. If I guess correctly, if this persistence value becomes 0, the clone will temporarily become invalid, and if we are attacked at that time, we will definitely die, Su Jun said in a deep voice. He only has 20 points left in his current cultivation endurance value. The chubby man fell silent for a moment and said, "My spawning only lasts for 15 points. What should I do? If I encounter another monster?" A hint of fear appeared on his face. Su Jun's body had been completely repaired, and he stood up and said, "I regret not being able to ask that voice in the white light. How can the persistent points of this puppet be restored?" "Well, Brother Cha, can you help me find my glasses? I can't see very clearly." During the fight just now, his glasses didn't know where they fell. With his several 100-degree myopia, he couldn't find them even after searching for a long time. The chubby man was taken aback and couldn't help but laugh. After scanning the ground a few times, he found it and handed it over to Su Jun. Su Jun put on his glasses and felt that the scenery in front of him was much clearer. He immediately breathed a sigh of relief. "By the way, my name is Cha Tienda, what's your name?" The chubby man smiled. "Sujuan." Su Jun had just announced his name when suddenly, not far away, a faint sound rang out again. Both of them heard it and immediately retreated with a wary expression on their faces, looking together at the place where the sound was coming from. This forest is very dense, and the two of them can only see through the branches and leaves, vaguely seeing a black shadow. Pulling out the dense branches and leaves, following the sound, a very young woman emerged. The two of them breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that the newcomer was a woman. This is a young woman in her 20s, with short-cut hair and a set of tight-fitting clothes, which looks very refreshing and neat. She also holds a curved bow that is about 2 feet long and has a faint red color all over her body. With a cautious expression on her face, she breathes a sigh of relief when she sees Su Jun and this chubby guy. She says, "Are you also the chosen Imperial God costume colonizers?" The sound is crisp and pleasant to listen to. Su Jun nodded and said, "We are all archers." "Are you an archer?" Seeing the curved bow in her hand, Su Jun naturally made this inference. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 5. Fire Phoenix. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Cha Tienda chuckled and said, "My name is Cha Tienda, and this little brother is Su Jun. Little girl, what's your name?" The woman looked at the two of them, then her gaze fell on Su Jun's face. How to say that these two men were standing together? Su Jun had a gentle appearance and was easy to trust, while Cha Tienda, who had a fierce face, didn't seem like a good person no matter how he looked, and couldn't blame others for their gaze, which fell on Su Jun. "Tian Mei Feng, I like the profession of archer." "What did you choose?" said the curved lip slightly. Although Cha Tienda was almost 40 years old, he was still very excited when he saw a beautiful woman and quickly said, "I am a warrior." Su Jun hummed and said, "The summoner I have chosen." Suddenly, the branches and leaves on the edge moved, and a black shadow rushed towards them. The chubby guy on one side saw it and exclaimed in shock, "Danger, Xiao Jun, hurry up." On the other side, Tian Meifeng remained calm and lifted the red bow. Then, a red long arrow, shrouded in a faint flame, automatically appeared on the bow, aimed at the rushing black figure. The sudden black figure that pounced out was a wild wolf with dense black fur all over its body. A pair of green eyes showed a fierce and thirsty light, and it opened its dense white teeth and bit at Su Jun's head. Halfway through Su Jun's words, he was suddenly attacked, like a conditioned reflex, with a punch hitting the nose bridge of the oncoming wild wolf. Suddenly, the wolf's nose bone shattered, and he fell with a mournful cry. A light spot appeared on his body and entered Su Jun's body. Tian Meifeng saw that although Su Jun had a gentle appearance, he could easily kill the wild wolf with just one punch. Her eyes lit up and she quietly lowered her bow and arrow. Cha Pengzi praised, "Amazing." Su Jundao said, "What should we do now? Where should we go?" Cha Pengzi said in confusion, "How can I get to this damn place where I can't even distinguish between the southeast, northwest, and north?" Tian Meifeng fell silent for a moment and said, "Why don't we determine a direction and walk straight down? There will always be an end to this jungle." Su Jundao said, "This makes sense. Let's just do it this way." Tian Meifeng pointed to the left and said, "I walked straight along that side. Let's go this way now." She pointed to the right. Cha Pengzi smiled and said, "All right, let's go that way." He lifted the big sword onto his shoulder and suddenly said, "Grandma, you're hungry. Which of you brought food?" Su Jun shook his head, but Tian Meifeng took out a small bag from behind and then took out a few slices of bread from inside. He said calmly, "Let's settle for now. I don't know how many days this jungle will take to walk, and food is indeed a problem." Cha Pengzi chuckled and said, "Not only food, but also fresh water. We need to prepare the fire, but fortunately, we don't have to worry about the source of food for now." He kicked the black wild wolf that Su Jun had killed. The three of them each ate a piece of bread, and then the chubby guy picked up the wild wolf. In this regard, he was obviously an old hand, and the big sword in his hand was very sharp. He quickly peeled off the fur of the wild wolf and then dismembered the pieces of meat. And the sky outside gradually darkened. What should we do now? Should we continue our journey or just rest here for a night? Although Cha Pengzi is the oldest, he seems to be the least independent one. Su Jun looked at the wolf skin and bloodstains on the ground and said, "I wonder if this bloody smell will attract other beasts." "I don't think so. If it were to attract someone, they would have come long ago. The jungle is full of strange things, and many places are different from what we actually do. Let's take a break here tonight, the three of us, and take turns guarding the night." Tian Meifeng said calmly. Cha Fatty has already prepared the wolf meat, so he wrapped it in that wild wolf skin and tied it up with some green vines. After finishing everything, Cha Pengzi waved his big sword in his hand and said, "I'll guard first, you guys rest." Tian Meifeng nodded, and then the curved bow in her hand slowly disappeared into the air. Su Jun's heart moved and he said, "Can we put away the weapons?" Tian Meifeng said, "This divine costume can be divided into a startup state and a dormant state. When it is not started, the endurance value of the costume will gradually recover, and I accidentally discovered this." Cha Fatty and Su Jun were stunned for a moment, then they glanced at each other and burst into laughter, constantly puzzled by their difficult problem. It turned out to be so simple. Tian Meifeng couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong? What are you laughing at?" Su Jun smiled slightly and said, "We have been wondering how to recover the durability of this loss, but it turned out to be so simple, so we laughed. Then, we also released the state of the Imperial Divine Armor. Sure enough, the Imperial Divine Armor that entered a resting state is slowly recovering its durability." Tian Meifeng said seriously, "Brother Cha, if you're on the night guard, be careful. Let's start dressing up for now." Cha Pengzi said, "I understand now. Rest assured, I will protect you." Hee hee, now I'm not like when I first saw a monster, I was scared and only knew how to run away. He waved his big sword and looked arrogant. Tian Meifeng nodded and then leaned against a thick tree pole on the side, closing her eyes. In this perilous jungle, the mental exhaustion of the day can be imagined, and all three of them were tired. Sujuan also found a place to rest, and the night wind was very cool, making her sleep very uncomfortable. Sujun was half asleep and half awake like this, and after a while, suddenly came a thunderous shout from Cha Pengzi in his ear. Sujun and Tian Meifeng almost woke up at the same time. Without saying a word, Tian Meifeng suddenly stood up when she woke up and whispered, "Fire Phoenix activated." A red curved bow immediately appeared in her hand. Sujuan opened his eyes and saw that Cha Pengzi was waving the white sword in his hand. With a fierce shout, he swung it and struck a black animal that was rushing towards him. The animal let out a growl and then rolled out. Through the faint night light, Sujun saw clearly that this black animal was the kind of black wild wolf he had once killed. Cha Pengzi had just killed one, and in the slope, another black wolf man pounced and immediately bit Cha Pengzi. Cha Pengzi let out a strange cry and quickly shook off the wild wolf, while in front of him, 3 black wild wolves rushed out from the darkness at lightning speed. Sujuan shouted out, "Be careful." He suddenly stood up, his mind spinning, and he unconsciously blurted out, "Beast God activated." Suddenly, the chaotic chip in his eyebrows flashed with light, and waves of crystal light swept through his body. Beast God's information appeared in his mind, and his life had recovered to the highest 150 points. The Imperial God's disguise was activated, and he rushed forward. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 6. Leader Wolf King, Seeking Flowers for Collection. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. But there was another person who was faster than him. Suddenly, a fiery red light shot through the air and instantly hit one of the black wolves that was rushing towards Cha Pengzi. This fiery red light was so powerful that it was immediately nailed to the black wolf's body with a scream. The powerful impact, along with it, shot the black wolf upside down and fell heavily to the ground. On the other side, Tian Meifeng was holding the red curved bow in her hand. The arrow she had just fired was the one she had fired, and the second arrow immediately condensed a faint flame and appeared on the bowstring. With a loud bang, Sujun took a step slower than the fiery red arrow and rushed forward. He exerted all his strength and punched fiercely, hitting one of the wild wolves on the head. The wild wolf let out a scream and flew backwards. Cha Pengzi didn't show weakness either. He raised his big sword and tore open the belly of the third wild wolf, causing blood to splash out. The wolf rolled and rolled out, its belly torn open, and its intestines flowed out. But almost at the same time, 7 or 8 wild wolves were caught in the darkness around them. 3 people are horrified. All their attention was focused on the few wild wolves in front of them. When the 7 or 8 wild wolves around them pounced, they didn't have time to dodge and were all hit by the wolves, rolling and falling to the ground. Among them, Cha Pengzi let out a scream, "My feigned reproductive system has been turned into 0 for a long time." Ah! Before he could finish speaking, the white sword in his hand automatically disappeared into the air. Immediately after, a wild wolf bit through his throat. Brother Cha. Sujun, who was beside him, let out a scream of horror. He was also bitten by 3 wild wolves and hit various vital points on his body, but he had feigned to be infected. Although he was bitten and blood splattered, feigned to lose his life, but his strength surged out like a spring of water. With a loud roar and strength, he lifted all 3 wild wolves that were pressing on him and flipped them over. Then he flipped over, grabbed the legs of a wild wolf that was pressing on Cha Fatty's body, and used all his strength to tear them apart. Suddenly, blood sprayed onto his face, and this wild wolf was in agony. With a howl, he tore it in half between his legs. The chubby guy who was bitten off his throat muttered twice, and blood kept oozing from his throat and mouth. Su Jun exclaimed, "Brother Cha, it's okay. The puppet will quickly repair your injury. You won't be fine." Wow! With a miserable cry, he was immediately bitten and thrown to the ground by those wild wolves who had pounced again. The chubby man's lips trembled as if he wanted to speak, but he only murmured a few times before leaning his face and dying. "Brother Cha!" Su Jun shouted wildly. Holding on to one of the wild wolves that was biting fiercely on his throat, his strength was everywhere, and he could only hear a crisp sound. He forcefully broke the waist bone of this wild wolf and kicked it out, hitting the belly of the other wild wolf. Suddenly, he kicked the wild wolf far away, and when he landed, he happened to hang onto a sharp branch that was about the size of a baby's wrist protruding from one of the trees. He was stabbed through his belly, and the wild wolf let out a few screams before his voice slowly lowered. Every killed wild wolf will emit a small ball of light, which will fly into Su Jun's body and be absorbed by the implanted crystals. Every time this light ball is absorbed, the implanted crystals seem to undergo some changes, as if they are mutating and evolving. In an instant. In the air, rockets shot one after another, and with each arrow fired, a wild wolf howled and fell to the ground. When Su Jun pulled off the wolf corpses that were crawling on her body and got up, she saw Tian Meifeng holding the fire bow in her hand, with a calm face and cold eyes flickering. One arrow after another shot out, and not far from her side, 5 or 6 wolf corpses had already fallen, while several other wild wolves who looked at the situation and wanted to escape also died under her arrow. Every wild wolf she killed would also emit a cluster of light, absorbed by the crystals inside her body. Looking at the wolf corpses scattered all over the ground, Su Jun felt a bit dazed. It turned out that they had encountered a group of wild wolves with more than 10 of them tonight. "Brother Cha." Su Jun was about to take a look at the motionless Cha Fatty on the other side when Tian Meifeng suddenly snapped out, "Don't go." He grabbed him tightly, his face full of warning, and he was slowly retreating. Su Jun was taken aback for a moment, and then he felt the hair on his body stand up, a cold and absolutely terrifying aura brushing over him in the darkness. 2 shimmering green eyes the size of a baby's fist lit up, staring at Tian Meifeng and Su Jun, slowly approaching. Su Jun and Tian Meifeng dared not move a little, feeling as if as long as they moved or turned their heads to escape, this creature in the darkness would come rushing towards them like lightning, biting them to death. On Tian Meifeng's pretty face, there was also a slight sweat oozing out. She straightened her bow and revealed a red arrow that slightly transmitted the fiery red flames. It aimed at this dark creature, not daring to blink its eyes. Su Jun's whole body was also tense, clenched his fists in both hands, ready to pounce at any time. His current beast god cultivation still has 70 points of endurance and a bit of strength. It's unknown how much endurance Tian Meifeng's cultivation still has. The creature slowly emerging from the darkness was a huge black wolf that was 1 person tall. This wolf was terrifyingly large, like a mixture of creatures with a huge buffalo shape and a wolf-like appearance. What made Su Jun and Tian Meifeng feel the most eerie was that this huge wild wolf was wearing a very strange black wolf helmet, covering up most of its fierce face. Under the cover of this black wolf helmet, this huge wild wolf appeared like a warcraft, giving the two a heavy mountain of oppression. At this moment, it was quietly walking up to the motionless chubby guy lying on the ground, staring at Su Jun and Tian Meifeng. Suddenly, it lowered its head, opened its mouth, and with a loud bang, it bit off the chubby guy's head. Su Jun's hair stood on end. Although his heart was filled with fear, he still rushed forward. He understood that only by fighting hard may there be a chance. If they were afraid and cowardly, they would all die here. Tian Meifeng said, "Be careful, this one is the leader of that pack of wild wolves, the Wolf King." At the same time, the rocket shot out. At the same time as Su Jun and Tian Meifeng attacked, this seemingly quiet Wolf King finally moved. Its movements were incredibly light and lightning fast. With just a diagonal flash, it disappeared in front of the two of them. Su Jun pounced in the air, while Tian Meifeng's swirling red arrow also shot into the air. Be careful. Su Jun suddenly felt a flash of black shadow at the corner of his eye and couldn't help but scream. Almost at the same time, the huge Wolf King had reappeared, with his front legs resting on Tian Meifeng's shoulders and throwing her to the ground. At the same time, his big mouth opened and he bit her down, and with a click, it actually bit off Tian Meifeng's neck. Her head immediately fell off her body, her bones rolling. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 7. First Order Evolution, Collection, Today's. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Miss Tian. Not only the fat guy, but now even Tian Meifeng has died. Su Jun's heart is cold, and suddenly an indescribable despair and anger surged in his heart, seeming to tear open his chest. Roar. With a roar, Su Jun's body rushed out in an instant and landed on the Wolf King, then wrapped his hands around his neck. Die. Let's die together. Su Jun shouted, using all his strength to prick the neck of the Wolf King. The neck of the Wolf King suddenly made a gurgling sound. It opened its mouth and let out a roar, and its buffalo-like body jumped up. It then fiercely pushed Su Jun, who was holding onto its neck, out. With a loud bang, it led Su Jun into a big tree not far away. The cow-like body rushed out with a force that could be imagined. Su Jun only felt a sudden crack in his back, and several bones inside were immediately broken. With a whoosh of blood, the beast god's endurance immediately dropped from 70 points to 30 points. However, Su Jun's eyes were already red, and he desperately hugged the wolf's neck, wanting to break its sturdy neck like a cow's neck. The Wolf King also panicked. It could clearly feel the force on its neck getting stronger and stronger, unable to breathe, and began to feel dizzy and howling. Finally, the wolf roared again, and its body jumped up again, fiercely crashing into the big tree. The big tree couldn't withstand such a strong impact and suddenly snapped apart, while Su Jun let out a scream, almost fainting from the pain, with blood gushing out from his mouth and nose. From the waist, the bones inside were completely shattered, and the upper and lower bodies were only connected by a little flesh and skin to prevent them from completely breaking into two pieces. Fortunately, during this collision, the big tree couldn't withstand the breakage, so the strength of the fake beast god was far less than that of the first collision. Therefore, only 25 points of endurance were lost this time, and there are still 5 points left. Fortunately, these 5 points of endurance are still in the activated state, and the magical ability held Su Jun's breath. Otherwise, with the injuries he suffered now, if it weren't for the effect of the fake beast god, he would have died several times. However, in the next collision, these 5 points will inevitably be lost if they last for a long time, and Su Jun will have to die. The Wolf King let out a low growl, his neck getting tighter and tighter, his breathing difficult, his bones creaking in his arms, and his strength, like the Wolf King, began to lose some support. With a forced roar, the Wolf King finally exerted all his strength and once again led Su Jun into another big tree not far away. Su Jun, who was injured too severely, only had 5 points left to pretend to be alive, and his spirit had fallen into a semi-unconscious state. He vaguely saw the thick trunk of the distant tree getting bigger and bigger. Suddenly, he sensed a wave of crystals in the center of his eyebrows, and vaguely received a message that seemed to be from within his body, another life that was lurking. Feeling the crisis of his master, Su Jun, who received this message, unconsciously read out in a daze. Summoned under the name of the beast god, come out. Just as he finished reading, a strong blue light appeared on his body. Then, in front of the big tree that the Wolf King was about to collide with, a strong and dazzling blue light suddenly appeared and gathered. Suddenly, the Wolf King was also frightened and jumped up with a bow, reflexively stopping his rushing body. In shock, he grabbed his tail and took a few steps back. The burst of blue light quickly disappeared, and a huge floating egg had already emerged from the original sky. At the same time, a message flashed through Su Jun's mind. Summoning beast. Name. None. Type. None. Quality. None. Status. None. Life. None. Attack. None. Other. None. Introduction. Summoning beast egg, not hatched. Originally, this was the summoner's move, the summoning technique, which can really summon things to help in combat. However, why is it an unborn state, and what is the use of summoning it? Su Jun, who was in a semi-unconscious state, suddenly understood and finally learned the summoner's innate skill, the summoning technique. However, just seeing a glimmer of hope, he was extremely disappointed after flashing this message in his mind. Fuck. Finally, even Su Jun, who was as gentle as Su Jun, couldn't help but burst out a vulgar sentence, and a sense of despair surged in his heart. As long as the Wolf King collided again, the beast god would inevitably disintegrate, and with his current injury, he would immediately step into death. Desperate Su Jun suddenly felt something was wrong. Why hasn't the Wolf King moved yet? Turning to his senses, he saw the huge and strong Wolf King, who was as big and strong as a cow, shake twice before falling to the ground without moving. After waiting for a while, Su Jun regained his senses and released his hands. He felt that his hands were exerting too much force, almost stiff and numb. However, this Wolf King, with his head hanging down and blood all over his mouth, nose, eyes, and ears, had already died. Originally, the Wolf King had his neck completely twisted by him and had already died. The previous collision was already its last bit of strength. Did you actually kill the Wolf King yourself? In a daze, Su Jun saw a ball of light emerging from the Wolf King. This light ball is much larger than the green-scaled lizard and ordinary wild wolf that Su Jun had killed before, and it is actually the size of a child's fist. This light ball flew into Su Jun's body and was absorbed by the reproductive crystal. As soon as the crystal absorbs this photosphere, it suddenly feels like it has already absorbed some kind of energy and reached its limit, and then a certain qualitative change occurs. Roar. Su Jun, who had not yet regained his senses, couldn't help but let out a miserable roar. Then, a strong white light appeared on his body. In the light, his body continued to repair, not only repairing, but also strengthening his various meridians, organs, and muscles. A surging force surged out from all over his body, and then flowed away like mercury. This was a wonderful experience to the extreme. Su Jun felt that his ears had become more sensitive, and even his nearsightedness, which had been several hundred degrees, seemed to have returned to normal. With every wave of his hand and every throw, there was an indescribable feeling of immense strength. A message had already flashed through his mind. The evolution of the divine costume has been completed and entered the first-level state. The white light on his body gradually disappeared, and Su Jun, who was floating in mid-air, slowly fell down. He waved his hand and felt that his body had not only fully recovered, but also become indescribably strong and robust. At the same time, new information about the beast god evolving into a first-order state flashed through his mind. Durable. 400 points. Magic power. 300 points. Attack. 30 points. Defense. 25 points. Speed. 0 points. Equipment. An egg of a summoning beast. Other. None. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 8. Wolf Helmet, March 5th, Seeking Collection and Flowers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Originally, this Imperial Divine costume can still evolve. Su Jun murmured, suddenly clenching his fist and fiercely hitting a pine tree with a bowl-sized mouth on one side. The indescribable wild power was heard with a loud bang. This big tree with a thick bowl mouth was unexpectedly broken off by his fist, and the broken tree was even thrown several meters away by his terrifying power before falling heavily to the ground. Su Jun punched the big tree and was completely stunned. Although it can be said that the power of a normal human can be exerted several times after being possessed by the Imperial God, it ultimately belongs to the category of normal human strength. However, like now, a single punch can break a large pine tree with a bowl-sized mouth. This power is simply too terrifying. With such a force, if you hit it with just one punch, you may already have a force of no less than 1,000 pounds. Otherwise, how could you break this big tree and create such a terrifying scene? I thought in my mind that since he came to this jungle, every time he killed a beast, a cluster of light dots would emerge from the beast and be absorbed by the crystal of the clone. In the end, the Wolf King's fist-sized light cluster was absorbed by the clone, and he evolved and entered the first-level realm. I understand now. Killing beasts here can absorb this kind of energy like light cluster. When absorbed to a certain level, evolution can occur and stronger power can be obtained. After Su Jun thought about these things clearly, he gradually calmed down from the initial excitement. After the death of the Wolf King, it was strange that the black wolf helmet that was originally worn on its head had disappeared. Not only that, but also a small faint white energy ball was floating on its body, in addition to the light ball that Su Jun had absorbed, which was the size of a baby boxer. Strange, what kind of light sphere is this? Why isn't it absorbed by my crystal? Is it because my crystal has evolved to the first level and is already fully absorbed? It no longer absorbs this energy. Su Jun reached out curiously to touch the floating light sphere. Strangely enough, when his hand touched the light ball, he suddenly let out a sound and sucked it into his body. Then, he clearly felt that the light ball that had entered his body was also absorbed by the crystal. No, it was not as simple as ordinary absorption, but more like it was embedded into the crystal, because Su Jun could clearly feel that this small ball of light was attached to the crystal and did not disappear. At the same time, a message flashed through his mind. Equipment successful. Then, he found an additional wolf helmet in one of the equipment items in his Beast Emperor profile. Looking at the introduction of this wolf helmet again, I can only see its information as follows. Name: Wolf Helmet. Quality: Normal. Attribute: Defense plus 5 points. Can this wolf helmet still add attributes? Su Jun was taken aback for a moment, and immediately felt that indeed, the defense of the first-level beast god, which was originally 25 points, had now increased to 30 points. Not only that, but the wolf helmet was also clearly visible on his head and face. The black wolf helmet covered half of his head and face, revealing only 2 black holes in his eyes, making it easier for him to see clearly outside. On top of his head, there were 2 wolf-shaped ears standing up, which looked like a fierce wild wolf at first glance. Is this the so-called Imperial Divine Equipment? It can not only evolve, but also equip other equipment to enhance its attributes. This thing is really becoming more and more interesting. Su Jun embraced an indescribable sense of freshness and excitement, which disappeared completely when he saw Cha Pengzi's headless body again. Cha Fatty, he just died like this. Su Jun felt dejected and thought of Tian Meifeng again. Then he decided to dig a pit on the spot to bury the 2 people. With his current strength, digging a pit was an easy task, and he couldn't bear to throw their bodies outside for other beasts to eat. Just as he was turning around to look for Tian Meifeng's body, he suddenly froze. I remember clearly that Tian Meifeng was bitten off her head by the Wolf King, but now when Su Jun came over, he suddenly realized that Tian Meifeng had returned to her original state, lying quietly on the side, as if in a deep sleep. What's going on? Su Jun pondered, suddenly realizing that Tian Meifeng was different from Cha Fatty. When her head was bitten off, her genitalia did not fall to 0 o'clock for a long time, and her genitalia crystals were obviously not damaged. Therefore, she did not die, but fell into a deep sleep due to being injured too seriously. During this period of sleep, her body was actually restored and rebuilt. As for the original headless body, which should also belong to her, it is shocking that it still exists. Because she only had one head left, her body was completely reconstructed and grown under her head. However, although this creature can miraculously reconstruct the body, it cannot create clothes. Therefore, Tian Meifeng is now naked. Under the glow of the night, Su Jun stared blankly at this concrete and clear object, watching the curves and curves on top, and the two piles of flesh on his chest/front standing proudly in the night wind. Su Jun felt a little dry mouth and tongue twitching for a moment. Unfortunately, due to evolutionary changes, his vision, which used to be myopic, has now become even more powerful than that of a normal person, and he can see clearly through the faint glow of night. After reluctantly swallowing her saliva, Su Jun squatted down and tried to turn his face away from the tempting and criminal parts on her body. Then he reached out and lightly patted her, saying, "Hey, Miss Tian, wake up." This time she was injured too seriously. Although pretending to be reproductive prevented her from dying and repaired her body, she also fell into a deep sleep. She had been sleeping until now, and Ben was about to wake up. Su Jun slapped and called out, and Tian Meifeng immediately narrowed her eyes slightly and slowly regained consciousness. I'm not dead yet." Tian Meifeng woke up quickly and immediately remembered her experiences before falling into a coma. She couldn't help but sit up. Suddenly feeling a chill in her chest, she lowered her head and couldn't help but scream, "Ah!" She quickly shrank into a ball, hugging her chest tightly with both hands, looking panicked. This expression, even when encountering the fierce Wolf King, she had never been so surprised. "You! Don't look! Turn around quickly!" Miss Tian was so anxious that she was about to cry. "Yes! Yes!" Su Jun quickly stood up and turned around, but he didn't dare to go far, his ears almost pricked up. He was just in case another wild beast came to attack him. Now, he was not afraid of wild beasts attacking him, but afraid that when he turned around, wild beasts would come to attack Tian Meifeng. "You! Have you treated me?" Tian Meifeng said urgently. Su Jun hurriedly said, "No. No. Don't worry, girl. I just discovered you. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 9. Lizard Nest, April 5th, seeking flower comments. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Tian Meifeng felt slightly relieved when she saw him obediently turn around. Then she saw the headless female corpse, so familiar that she quickly recognized it as her own body. After a slight ponder, Tian Meifeng figured out the reason behind it and also understood why she was red now. He got up and moved to the ground, then took off the coat from the corpse and put it on himself. After finishing everything, he said, "All right, you can turn around." Su Jun turned around and saw that Tian Meifeng had returned to normal, her face was calm, and she had already put on her original tight-fitting clothes. However, there was only one set of underwear left on the headless body. Glancing at Su Jun, he said with a slight surprise, "What are you doing with this strange wolf helmet? It's really ugly." Su Jun explained some of his discoveries about gameplay and said, "Not only can gameplay evolve and improve, but these equipment also have the effect of enhancing attributes." Tian Meifeng said, "What are the attributes of your beast god after it has evolved to level 1? After Su Jun spoke, Tian Meifeng sighed and said, "My pretending fire phoenix only has 100 points of endurance and 150 points of magic power. The rest are all 0. Of course, this randomly gifted weapon Fire Bow has increased its attack power by 5 points, which is far inferior to what you have now. Su Jundao said, since my beast god can evolve, so can yours. Maybe your fire phoenix will be stronger than my beast god then. Tian Meifeng finished listening and nodded, with a hint of anticipation in her eyes. Next, the two dug 2 pits and buried the headless female body, the predecessor of Cha Pengzi and Tian Meifeng, respectively. Tian Meifeng looked at the body that originally belonged to her and was deeply moved for a moment. After Su Jun buried the chubby man, he couldn't help but feel a sense of melancholy. I didn't expect him to die like this. After the two of them finished their work, the sky had already become slightly brighter. It has to be said that in this world, apart from the terrifying beasts on the ground, there is basically no difference between the natural environment where Su Jun used to live, the same pine trees, the same blue sky and white clouds. Perhaps it was the morning relationship, as both of them took a deep breath and could feel the unusually fresh breath. Although Su Jun's vision has now returned to normal, he still picked up his nearsighted black-framed glasses on the ground and carried a large bundle of wolf meat. Thinking that all the wolf meat was prepared by the fat man, he couldn't help but sigh. In such a harsh environment, who knows if the next death will be oneself. Let's go, let's follow this direction and hope to leave the jungle soon. Tian Meifeng also picked up her small backpack and pointed ahead. Su Jun nodded and said, I'll go ahead, after all, I've reached the first level. After saying that, he separated the dense branches and leaves and crawled into the dense forest ahead. Tian Meifeng didn't argue with him either. She quietly walked behind Su Jun, looking back and forth from time to time. She was determined to do her best. In case a wild beast suddenly appeared from behind, it could be fatal. Just like this, the two of them were very careful and had been walking through this dense forest for over 100 meters without encountering any wild beasts again. After walking about 50 meters further, suddenly, the forest ahead became sparse, and not far away, there was a steep slope formed by mountain rocks. In this steep slope, there were also eerie cave openings exposed. After seeing it, both of them stopped, their faces showing a cautious expression at the same time. Tian Meifeng whispered, look at these cave openings. Maybe they are caves inhabited by some wild animals. Regardless of whether there are any wild animals there, let's go around from there and try not to make too much noise. As she spoke, she extended her left hand and pointed to another area on the diagonal. Su Jun nodded and turned his face slightly, whispering, got it. The two of them were now very close, and Su Jun suddenly smelled a faint fragrance in her hair, his mind slightly moving. Following Tian Meifeng's instructions, Su Jun quietly leaned around. The fallen leaves were thick in the jungle, and on this peaceful morning, stepping on them made a slight crisp sound. Just as the two of them had taken a few diagonal steps, Tian Meifeng's eyes were sharp when she suddenly noticed something moving in the caves 20 meters away. Feeling anxious, Tian Meifeng hurriedly grabbed Su Jun and told him not to move. Both of them fell quietly, hoping to hide their figures. Howl. A slight strange hoarse cry began, and then from those caves, figures surged like a green sea, surging out of a large group of fast-moving monsters. After seeing them, Su Jun's heart was shaken. He was not unfamiliar with these monsters, because they were the same type of monster he encountered after coming to this jungle. The green-scaled lizard. One by one, green-scaled lizards emerged from the caves, and Su Jun and Tian Meifeng's faces changed color. Now, the two of them are even more afraid to move. Although they are still 20 meters away, the speed of this green-scaled lizard is obviously faster than their running speed. The most terrifying thing is that in this dangerous jungle, if they run around casually, if they startle more monsters, they will not be seeking death on their own. This is why the two of them only wanted to quietly avoid the cave after discovering it, rather than immediately running away. One green-scaled lizard after another emitted a hoarse and strange sound in their mouths, then scattered around, constantly sniffing with their noses, as if searching for the scent of prey. Su Jun and Tian Meifeng leaned tightly together, motionless and nervous. Su Jun was not only nervous because he felt the threat of the large group of green-scaled lizards not far away, but what made him even more nervous was that Tian Meifeng's plump and moving body was now tightly pressed against his side. Unconsciously, the image of Tian Meifeng that she had seen last night appeared in her mind, and the indescribable dryness of her mouth and tongue made Su Jun unable to resist swallowing saliva. The two of them were tightly pressed together, not daring to move at all. Just under the threat of those green-scaled lizards patrolling not far away, Su Jun suddenly felt Tian Meifeng tightly pressing against his body, trembling slightly. Su Jun's heart trembled slightly. Tian Meifeng had always been very calm, never trembling with fear because she saw so many green-scaled lizards. Perhaps it was because as the green-scaled lizard patrolled around, its range grew larger and larger. If it continued like this, sooner or later, they would discover Su Jun and the others. Su Jun and Tian Meifeng also discovered this problem. Both of them swallowed their saliva, so hiding like this is not a solution. So, should we run away immediately? Or? The two of them quietly turned their faces and glanced at each other, both inquiring about each other's intentions. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th. Chapter 10. Lizard King, today's fifth watch, begging each. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Suddenly, Su Jun noticed that Tian Meifeng's face was flushed with embarrassment. It seems that what she expected was indeed right. Although Tian Meifeng has always been calm and not afraid of encountering monsters, she seems very shy towards men and women. Su Jun nodded to Tian Meifeng, then his eyes tilted slightly back, indicating that he should temporarily flee. Tian Meifeng saw the green-scaled lizards approaching in front and could only nod in agreement with Su Jun's decision. After the decision was made, the two of them immediately tightened their bodies and were about to get up together and escape when suddenly, the other side let out a scream. This scream was obviously made by a woman, and immediately startled the large group of green-scaled lizards. Suddenly, these green-scaled lizards rushed towards the place where the sound was made like branches of green arrows, lightning fast. Su Jun and Tian Meifeng were stunned and then stood up at the same time. Su Jun ran forward 2 steps, and then through the crack in the dense forest branch, he saw 3 people suddenly appearing, one of whom was obviously a woman. I think these 3 people also arrived here by groping and suddenly noticed a large group of green-scaled lizards ahead. One of the 3 women lost her composure and exclaimed, immediately startling the group of monsters. At least 40 or 50 green-scale lizards rushed up in a swarm, and the fate of these 3 people was imaginable. With a few mournful screams, they were immediately knocked down by the green-scale lizards that were pouncing on them, and then they were submerged by this group of lizards. Su Jun's muscles trembled on his face, wanting to rush forward to save someone, but he forced himself to endure it. Tian Meifeng tightly grabbed him, gritted her teeth and glared at him, then pulled him to the other side and ran quickly. Su Jun dared not look at the miserable situation on the other side anymore and followed Tian Meifeng quietly towards the other side. In my ears, I could still vaguely hear the increasingly faint and mournful cry. Along the way, there were no more green-scaled lizards. The two of them turned around, bypassed this rocky cave, and then arrived at the back of the cave. Tian Meifeng, the leading cat, walked through the forest with her waist down at a very fast speed. Suddenly, she stopped her body, causing Su Jun from behind to lose consciousness and touch her back. Tian Meifeng's body stiffened, then squeezed Su Jun's body and took a step back. The red curved bow in her hand had unconsciously been lifted. Su Jun stood up and looked over her shoulder. In front of them, there was an empty space less than 10 meters away, which was littered with bloodstains everywhere. On the ground, there were broken limbs, and it was unknown how many people had died. At this moment, 5 green-scaled lizards were leisurely gnawing on the flesh and blood on the ground amidst these broken limbs. Sujuan could still clearly see that one of the green-scaled lizards was carrying a section of blood-red large intestine, swallowing and pulling, completely pulling out the large intestine from the corpse. Sujuan has been feeling nauseous, even thinking of the scene where he once ate chicken intestines. He never thought there was anything wrong with eating chicken intestines, but compared to the scene before him, it seemed so disgusting. These 5 originally leisurely green-scaled lizards naturally noticed the sudden arrival of Su Jun and Tian Meifeng, and their leisurely expressions immediately turned into ferocity. They let out a low hoarse growl in their mouths, then dispersed and formed a fan-shaped enclosure. As these 5 green-scaled lizards dispersed, the two suddenly realized that behind them was another larger lizard crawling. The scales on this lizard are already green and black, looking like steel scales. Moreover, just climbing there is already as big as a small mountain, and its length is definitely over 5 meters. This huge lizard had been crawling there all along with its eyes closed, seemingly resting. Now it was awakened and slowly opened a pair of fist-sized green eyes. The black hole in the green beast's eyes, like a magic eye, stared coldly at the two of them. Su Jun and Tian Meifeng suddenly understood why a few green-scaled lizards could kill so many people on the ground. It turned out that behind these 5 green-scaled lizards, there was also a lizard king. These 5 green-scaled lizards spread out in a fan-shaped shape, emitting hoarse calls in their mouths, and then pounced like 5 green arrows. As Tian Meifeng lifted the fire bow in her hand, there was a sudden sound and a flash of red light. Suddenly, one of the green-scaled lizards let out a scream and fell. Sujuan then bypassed Tian Meifeng and took the initiative to pounce. With 3 hisses, 3 green-scaled lizards almost immediately attacked Su Jun and bit him. With a painful groan, he was bitten 3 times in an instant, but the beast god's endurance only dropped 6 points. On average, after being bitten, only 2 points are lost for a long time. But with the pre-evolved beast god, every bite would cost at least a few dozen long-lasting points. Su Jun was taken aback and instantly understood that this must be the effect of those 30 defense points. With a loud roar, Su Jun punched and directly hit the forehead of the green-scaled lizard that was biting on his thigh. With a muffled snort, the green-scaled lizard's hard skull immediately rotted like tofu when it was punched. Its blood mixed with its brain splattered and it died to the point where it could no longer die. Su Jun punched and killed the green-scaled lizard, and his heart was filled with joy. He shouted, "I see, I understand." He clasped his hands together and threw the other green-scaled lizard that was pouncing on him. With a loud shout, he threw the green-scaled lizard out. The extremely powerful force threw the green-scaled lizard flying more than 10 meters away, and then slammed it heavily into a tree with a bowl mouth thick. Suddenly, a loud bang broke the tree, and the green-scaled lizard was smashed to the point where a ball of plasma burst out, killing it instantly. While Su Jun killed these 2 green-scaled lizards, Tian Meifeng shot and killed the remaining 3 lizards with 1 arrow, faster than his speed. The fire bow in her hand has 5 points of attack power, and the rocket she shoots has an exceptionally strong penetration power. This ordinary green-scaled lizard will die if caught. The 5 green-scaled lizards all died in an instant, and the lizard king not far away seemed stunned before finally shaking and standing up. This time, neither of them evaded anymore, but slowly surrounded each other. Su Jun picked up 2 large stones from the ground and stood ready. This time, Tian Meifeng was the first to strike, and from a distance was an arrow, creating a red trajectory in the air and instantly hitting the huge lizard king that had just shaken and stood up. After the lizard king stood up, he was over 5 meters long and over 2 meters high. Such a huge creature looked truly shocking, with an indescribable sense of oppression that made Su Jun, who was approaching, feel a bit breathless. He can be certain that this lizard king is more powerful than that black wolf king. Qingming outing and happy reading. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediate recharge, activity period. April 4th to April 6th.